No. Hello. I know there's a delay, so we've been all saying hi and seeing who's here. I'm going to look over here in case the browser freezes up again and I can't see comments. I have backup. We're here in case the browser freezes up again. There's my big mouth. There's a delay. Okay. All right, good. I can see it. Hi, everyone. People are coming in. We have 14 so far, and we'll get started. Rose is here. Hi, Rose. And Jill and Candace and Christine and Deborah and Laurie. Laurie. Hello, Laurie. Oh, hello. So I have a question. So it is EDK Chestnut. Do you have a first name that I could know? Only reason why is I have quoted some of your comments and have shared, and I just spell out your name because I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. If you don't want to let us know, that's not a problem. I just would like to be able to identify you. I do see it's like Ed K and then Chestnut. Oh, it's Erica. Hi, Erica. I'm going to mark that down. I hope I remember. It took a while for me to remember Christina with a K for my Tinderbox, but I think I have that one down. Nice to see everyone. Canada, you're Barbara. You're from Canada. Hi. Hi. All right. What else? Who else we have? Cool. I see. I don't know who Sweet Me 1333 is. That's new to me. All right. Okay. So Kathy is back by popular demand. She said she can't read all the wonderful comments. I'm going to have to send them to her. Judy, we're doing great. And our topic is the whole point of why Elizabeth chose Lucas. I mean, how could she not? Oh my goodness. The character is just an amazing character. The writers are doing a really good job of just like little by little leaking out who he is and letting us discover who he is. And Kathy has all kinds of little juicy tidbits she wants to share. So I'm actually just here to look at comments. I'm letting Kathy, run the show. So when you're ready, Miss Kathy, we are too.
Hello, everybody. My first thought was, why did she choose Lucas, was kind of a quote that Elizabeth said to Nathan. I do love you. It would be impossible not to. I mean, that's the way I feel about Lucas. It would be impossible not to fall in love with him. But I was trying to think of what are his attributes, both good and bad, that would make her fall in love with him. And I came up with a list.
Oh.
I'm just going to go through it. So,
how many things are on that list?
I didn't count them. There's a handful.
All right.
So he's, first of all, in no particular order, he's flirty. I love that about him. And he did that immediately upon his first meeting with Elizabeth. He was flirting his little tush off. And what I really loved was she was flirting right back. It's like, why wouldn't he think she's single and available? Because she's, giving him the little coy looks and, well, what kind of job is it? And blah, blah, blah. So I love that about him.
Yeah.
I like the fact that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Roxanne.
No, I was just going to say, I love that because in my mind, because she's still very much committed to her husband who has passed, like Jack, but I almost feel like she couldn't help herself. Like there was an attraction there and it kind of leaked out. And then even the way she answered him little by little, like who she was and that look on her face, I don't know if that was an Erin thing where she was excited, for the storyline to begin or not. But the way it comes off as a viewer, it's like instant attraction, even though she may not realize it. So that was just my thing.
I agree. And I know that they collaborated. Lucas and Elizabeth, the real people, collaborated on how they were going to do this finale. I'm convinced that they collaborated from the moment he stepped on the set, and she probably did with Kevin McGarry as well. But just how are we going to play this? How flirty are we going to be? And so I really enjoyed that. So he is also faithful because after that first attraction to Elizabeth, he has never wavered. He never looked at another woman. He had his eyes set on her, and he focused on her like, what was that Dave Ramsey said, laser focused. He was laser focused on Elizabeth, and that was that with him. He's a gentleman. After that first time when he was flirting with Elizabeth, the minute he found out she was married, he backed off. And he's like, "Oh, Mrs. Thornton, okay, I'm Lucas Bouchard. Nice to meet you." And he turned around, and I was looking to see if there was any expression on his face, and it was expressionless. He was just, "Okay, that was, I wish, but it was not to be."
She's off limits. Yes.
Yep, and it stayed that way until the night of the open house at the saloon, where he's like, "Oh, where's Mr. Thornton?" And she like, "I'm alone tonight." And they're like, "Well, he passed away about a year ago." And you didn't quite see the lights. He didn't light up, but you could see the wheels like, "Oh, okay, let me reshift my thinking on this whole thing."
Right. He said, "I have a way of, saying the wrong thing to our lovely teacher." Like he or whatever the word was, he added a beautiful attribute. And then Rosemary walks off and she's like, and other people too. Yeah.
She was still smarting over there. "You never heard of me and you don't want me. Let me get this straight. You never heard of me and you don't want me to open your saloon with the entertainment." So this one is a little bit different from the other ones I've mentioned. He channels his hurt and anger in non-destructive ways. So he retreats. He lashes out and then he retreats. So the examples of that was, of course, when he found out that his parents were separated and Elizabeth had known. He really gave it to her. But then he just kind of stormed off. And it wasn't long before he cooled off. And, he's like, "I was looking to find you to tell you, I'm sorry, I should have never spoken to you that way." And the other time that stands out is when he just left town, that we didn't even know he was leaving town until the first episode of season 8, when right after she ran into his arms. But he is the master of the hurt look. He can give the stink eye kind of just in passing and then turn around and go about his business. So if you weren't looking right at him, you'd never know that he had given you the stink eye, except Elizabeth tends to know because she's usually the recipient of it, actually.
Yes.
And when it happened, when his mom came to town, she immediately got it. She picked up what he was putting down because she was like, "You know what? Can't really go to dinner tonight. We're going to have to,
Yes.
Yeah.
Now,
I did pick up something on that when Nathan asked her to dinner. She said something. She responded, "Yes, I think that would be nice for the four of us."
yes.
Which I caught that this time. It wasn't like, "Oh, you and me dinner," or whatever. It was like the four of us. That made it okay in her head until
Right.
that wind of it.
So what she said at first was like, she him and Hop, and he goes, "Well, you could bring, baby Jack. Allie and I've talked about it." And she's like, "Oh, okay, like a whole unit." He's thinking like a family, and she's thinking like, "Oh, we'll go as friends," and she was going right to the restaurant where Lucas would see her, even though she's already got a thing kind of going with him. The other thing that you said, that when he's hurt, he's not. I forget how you worded it. How did you word it?
He lashes out and then he retreats.
Right. And I don't feel like he really, and you said non-destructive. I don't feel like he's very much of a like he does lash out, but it's not like terribly angry. You know what I mean? But I know what you're saying.
It's more passive.
Yes, just in comparison with that shows to me a mature character, someone who's ready for a relationship. There's always bumps in the road. Like, for instance, we'll go back to Rosemary and Lee. They are like the epitome of the couple, and they have their moments and then they work them out. And the same, you saw that happening with Elizabeth, where the little hiccups were along the way. Now with Nathan, this is why I knew it wasn't going to happen. I love Nathan, the character, and I can't wait for his character. But I felt like for his character to have a love interest, I felt like he was growing and he was learning from Elizabeth how to be a parent, because when she tried to tell him things, he would say, "Oh, no," and didn't want to believe it, and then blamed others. And then he learned and would apologize. But it took him a while. But when he was not chosen, like when she was at the sweetheart dance in season 6 or 7, 6 was the sweetheart dance they had. She chose Lucas, and then Nathan gives her that look and walks away, and then she feels bad and he leaves. He doesn't even stay. Then when, like, for instance, with the conference, because he realized that they weren't going to be together, he didn't even show up for his child's conference.
Right.
So again, that's the whole, like, he needs
to maturity, a level of maturity.
Yes. And I truly think Lucas has that. Yes. Yeah. Go ahead, Kathy.
So the next one is kind of like a three-way thing. He's confident, he's fearless, and he will not be intimidated.
Mm.
Even though he's a gentleman and you may think, oh, he's this namby-pamby, guy, always wears a suit and, talking fancy and stuff. And the examples that occurred to me there was when he went after the guy who did his friend wrong. Remember, he had the partner or good
Yeah.
friend and the widow, and he
Yeah.
just strapped on that gun and put on that hat and hopped on that horse and
Yes.
told Elizabeth, see you later.
Yes.
He was not afraid. He was going, as Elizabeth said, he didn't look like someone running away. He looked like someone running into danger. And both times, excuse me, Bill and Nathan separately, excuse me,
Okay.
tried to come up to him and intimidate him.
Yeah.
And he didn't back down either time. He outsmarted Bill with the whole, I don't know if it was famine or something. He had the money under
Yes.
him.
Yes.
And he told Nathan, I'm not going anywhere. So, he's not someone who will back down in the face of just because someone doesn't like him.
Right.
You say something, Roxanne?
It was about the part where you said when he cares about you, he's fierce and he's confident and he doesn't matter. Do you remember what happened was through no fault of his, Elizabeth gets stuck in the middle of that and there's that whole shootout and Nathan helps. And he says to her when she talks to him, like she's mad at him and he kind of makes a little joke afterwards out of it. I kind of do the hero thing, superhero thing.
That was next on my list.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but you can say it, but what he said to her was, I would have done anything to make sure that didn't happen, that you wouldn't leave your son without a mother, and I thought, oh, I believe it, I believe it.
She. That was one of my favorite parts because the look on her face after she was trying so hard not to choose at him because it's like, okay, all is forgiven. That truly was her reaction to that. Oh, you would die for me? Oh, I love you even more.
Yes.
I also have on my list that he's compassionate. And the first thing that popped into my mind to illustrate that was the way he interacted with Nathan's father. When Nathan wouldn't give him the time of day, he had, compassion for this guy and tried to keep his spirits up. And if I recall correctly, he even tried to get Nathan to, give him a break. He has the capacity to change. I also see that quality in him with Allie. It's like she doesn't want to admit it. But I see that they've bonded there a bit because
they have.
Immediately when she first met him and when she was hiding out in the saloon, she trusted him with what her real motivation was. He got it out of her. He helped her to fit in and blend in. And then when she came to get the gift back, he talked her through it and he can bite my ankle anytime, but I think I'm but I just love the way he interacts with those who are vulnerable.
Yes.
He's generous. He donated a library to the town, and even though we all know he really was doing it for Elizabeth, as he told her, no disrespect, I thought the town needed a library. He was very cool with that. He loaned money to Nathan, despite the fact that Nathan, has been, treating him pretty crappy for a while there. But I don't think he even asked any questions. I think he said something like, you must, or maybe it was Bill who said, you must have been really desperate if you borrowed money from that guy. But I thought that was pretty cool of him. He sponsored a Christmas celebration for the entire town.
I know.
And not to mention the bordering towns, there were a ton of visitors that came through for that. And a little moment, but he got his hair cut and he gave a pretty big bill. I can't remember if it was Fiona or Ava who did the haircut that day.
It was Fiona. She did.
Yeah, and he told her just keep the change.
Yeah,
I thought that was a fun little interchange. Maybe we should shave his beard, see what you look like. I'll think about it maybe next time. So that's his generosity. The thoughtfulness, which I already touched on with Allie, not wanting to ruin special moments for Nathan, like the graduation, the adoption ceremony. This guy is always looking out. I can't believe how often he looks out for Nathan and doesn't want to cause him tension or anger or, distraction. He's being a good friend to Nathan before Nathan even realizes it. So that's why I'm convinced they're going to be BFFs. He's also been very patient with Elizabeth, as we all know, not taking advantage of her, even in the moments when she was kind of, all right, maybe this is okay, just a kiss, whatever. And he always stopped her and is like, nope, even if you think you're ready, I know you're not. So let's hold up until you're really ready. That's a very special kind of man that can hold off and think of what's good for her rather than what's in his own best interest. He has a conscience, and I think about how stricken he was when Henry got sick and Christopher, let him have it. He went in his office and just sat there and brooded by himself because he felt responsible for that. He went to Elizabeth, and I'm murky on this. He had to give her some news. The minute she opened the door, she could tell by his face that it was something bad. And he's like, "What is it?" She said, "What is it?" I think it's when she told him that Lee had been hurt. Was that it? Yeah. So he feels things. He feels compassion. Um, he feels the hurt. He's empathetic, I guess, to others' pain.
He is. As some of the comments are in here and they're agreeing with you, it's true. He is empathetic. That's a wonderful word for him. And I think it's because, especially with Allie. So for a while, Allie just has Nathan. And Nathan, when he first had Allie, he said, I worked a lot. I moved a lot. Not until they came to Hope Valley did she feel more accepted in a family. So he identified with her. And I think because he was taken around so much, he could never find a space, and he was different. He was smart. He read, he was sort of like an outcast loner kind of thing. That's why I get so mad when Nathan says to him, maybe you don't fit here. And I'm like, oh, but he takes it and he's thinking to himself, I am going to make sure I fit this time. So I think that's why he feels how he does. That's why he's sensitive, but he's sensitive and he's a man. He could drink from a teacup, and I'm sorry, he is still a man. And, he's not
like, also swig back that scotch or whiskey,
yes,
whatever that is,
and play cards. He's like so sexy. I have to throw that word out there, even though they don't like to use that. Coming back to something that you had said when it comes to Nathan, he gave him money without asking one question and said to him, are you okay? Like, I'm going to give you this money. You don't have to eat without, not even like, could you pay me back? He didn't even know, but he gave it to him without question. And his concern was, is this
like in trouble?
Yeah, can I help you in some other way? And he just left it at that. He always gives you, he lets you know. They wrote the character so that he lets you know he's there for you, but then he steps back and he lets you like do your thing, which is like super supportive. That's why I said he has the qualities of being a good dad.
Yeah.
What do they say?
And a good friend.
Yeah. Oh, yes. He paid all the oil workers out of his pocket, helping his friends to rebuild the school that was damaged. That's right. That's where he went. He thought he said, I let the jealousy get the best of me. So I was going to go down and give myself a reality check. It wasn't like he was running away, but he needed, and sometimes we need to step away from stuff.
Yep.
And then he came back and he explained it. Lucas is very empathetic and compassionate to everyone in Hope Valley. I wonder if Nathan ever gave the money back. He did. Yeah, you saw, Candace, you may have missed it, but if you watch, you'll see he does. He does return it to him. I love Hope Valley. Everyone is like family. This is true. Just say it. He's perfect, Sharon.
No, I don't think he is, but that's a good thing, Sharon. I love a bad boy. I hate to admit it, but I'm totally into the bad boys. And I've told this to Roxanne. I think I've mentioned this to her. I think that somewhere along the line, we're going to get a chance to see a different side of Lucas. Not a bad side, but just maybe a side that has a little bit more tension, a little bit more what happens when things aren't perfect in his world.
Yes.
So, and I'm looking forward to that.
Me too.
I think Elizabeth is going to be right there with him for the journey.
I know, like how we got to when Rosemary came and she was a brat. She purposely lied and tried to hurt their relationship, even though she loved Jack. That was her like lifetime friend and all of that. but then little by little, you saw, because she was so flawed, you saw her flaws and how she was, handling things. It helped her to change. And I like it because now when things aren't so perfect for her, she handles it differently. She has Lee as her partner to back it up. And I think that's why we fall in love with that couple. And I think that's what the writers, if they're smart, and they are, I think the writers are smart. We think that's what they'll do for Elizabeth and, Lucas. How could they not? Because then we don't see the journey of them becoming a couple. We know
Right.
they're a couple. We know they love each other. Now we have to see that journey, which I like. Yeah. So I agree with you. Absolutely.
Yeah. Another thing about Lucas and Nathan, and I'll just say it, I think we got the makings here of a bromance. Somewhere down
Yep.
the road, I think those two are going to be closer than this.
I do
And
too.
one of the other examples of that, he loaned him the money. He didn't back down. He's always there for him. Nathan, when there was the explosion at the oil
Yep.
well, Nathan ran over, and the first thing he did was grab Lucas's hand and pull, "Are you all right?"
Yep.
And when Lucas when he rode out of town to go help his friend, and Nathan caught up with him, and he asked, "Well, what's going on?" Nathan pretty much didn't hesitate. He just spilled guts. He just told him everything.
Yes.
So there's some trust there between both of them.
You're correct. Yes.
Yeah. So it's just now that Elizabeth is not the obstacle that's keeping them at odds.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there is the making for a good bromance and some good humor, because you could kind of see it all along when they pass each other, and Nathan would give a little smirk when he thought he had the upper hand with Elizabeth, and Lucas would give as good as he got, the same thing. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And that's where I was going to say, Lucas also is very funny and self-deprecating when necessary, when it's called for. When he was telling the bad joke to the guys,
Yes.
Bill and Lee, and they're just looking and it's like, "Don't you get it?" And I don't even remember. It sounded like totally unfunny. It's like, well, Gustav did tell it to me in French, so maybe it didn't work. So,
Yeah.
and then the whole being a hero is kind of my thing now, which is a complete anachronism, because that's the kind of stuff they say in the 21st century. I don't think they said it, but it worked because it got her smiling at him again. So
True.
yeah, he's got that going for him, and he's quick to apologize. I've touched on that earlier. He leaves town. He kind of talks smack to Elizabeth, but they always end up encountering each other at the same time. They both come to each other to apologize and make up, and it still cracks me up when she said, "I don't know if you want anything to do with me anymore." And he's like, it's like his mind is going, "Woman, are you insane?" What?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's because the two of them are very confident characters, very confident. And then when they get together, because they love each other so much and are attracted to each other, you could see how their insecurity is there. Like, well, I don't know if you want anything to do with me. And he's like, I don't know. Like when he showed up at her door and she opens the door and we didn't even realize he left. Remember that scene? And she's like, hello, like her expression's like, oh, she lights up, and he's like, well, I'm so sorry. And she's like, oh, I didn't know you saw that, but we'll get, I love that. So I'm just going to stop for a second. So in the chat, I'm going to share this. This is Joanne. Wasn't there an example of that with the event of his mother and Elizabeth, the news of his father leaving? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, Joanne. So if you could retype, I know there's a lag, but retype and we might be able to answer that. Do you think you know what she's asking there?
I think she may be talking about the fact that when he found out Elizabeth knew that his parents had separated, he was so hurt and angry. That was an example of, he lashed out at her. He stormed off.
Yes.
Even when his mom left town, he was still tense about it, and he didn't forgive her. And then later on in that episode or the next episode, he was like looking around, walking, and she came up behind him, and it turns out they were both looking for each other.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, there you go, Joanne. And then Candace and Rose are definitely agreeing with the whole bromance. And I think we're rooting for it. I've heard the writers talk about it. And they compare it often to like the whole Rosemary and Elizabeth thing. So I think it's coming. I agree with you. I also think that Henry and another pairing is Henry, and he's older, and Henry with Lucas, just like Bill with Nathan, because they have the same, you know, types of jobs and careers and the same kind of polish and then the same kind of roughness. And then I just think they would come together also as friends. Like I really see that coming, all of the men together.
Yeah.
I love that Lucas apologizes for what he did wrong, and Elizabeth does the same thing. Yes, they're very mature-minded about it. They're not perfect. They are so honest and straightforward with each other, and I love that. I want to know about his education and former jobs. Did he go to college or university? Do we know what his father does for a living? We don't.
That's all going to unfold, I think, in the coming months.
And that's the whole, we get hints of it through what we're seeing in his office. And I think this is a big prediction of mine. I feel like the Bouchards, because they have a San Francisco, even the mother talks about it going back to San Francisco. They must be living there besides Quebec. I think that the Bouchards and the Thorntons know each other. And also Fiona's family know each other, like Fiona, her family. And I'm not sure how, or if it's a positive thing, but I don't think the three, like, I don't think Fiona, Elizabeth, and Lucas even realize it. But I think their families know each other somehow. That's just something.
I couldn't agree more. That's my prediction. I predict that Lucas's father and Elizabeth's father have some kind of dealings that wasn't positive. And so that may be a source of angst for them. I think his father, I don't want to say he's a bad guy, or I think there may be some shade there. I think his father may be one of those the ends justify the means kind of fellows. And that may cause some angst in the Elizabeth and Lucas romance. Not going to stop it, but you know, it could be a little bump at the road for them.
It's funny, Sharon. I think that she's been trying to get on, and we chat like in private messages, but she's been trying to get on to one of these lives, and she says what you say, Kathy, where you had suggested that they might stand up for each other, be in a wedding, to each other's wedding or something like that. And then she put tee hee hee. Maybe Lucas's father, was an ambassador. Now, you know what, Rose? That would be why they did the traveling, why they were in so many places. That's a really, really
interesting.
That's interesting. I'm writing that down so we don't forget that. I like that, Rose. Thank you. Okay, maybe for Lucas's dad. I write all this down to see if it comes up. Don't Lucas' parents live in Montreal? That was the return address on the manuscript his mother sent. I don't know that it was Montreal, Cindy. I know that
City. I saw that part, but I don't know enough about Canada.
What was it?
Quebec City.
Okay.
At least QC, I took it to mean
Quebec City. Yeah. So I know there was Quebec was on there, but I also do know that the publishing house is from that area. So that might be where, but I do know that she said, I'm going to return to San Francisco. Somehow, some way they have a place there. When he first came to Hope Valley, he knew a lot about San Francisco, and Fiona like tooted in that, even though he said he didn't, she caught on. So there's definitely a home base somehow. I don't know, maybe that's where his mother was from, or maybe, and you know, I don't know. And maybe that's how the dad, I don't know. There's just a story that I know that includes that. I hope we get to see Lucas's dad this season. Yes, we all kind of want that. Jill's thinking maybe that's the country club circles. I'm not sure if Fiona's family has money, but her fiance did, because she said, and not unless it had to do with her parents. That could have been it. She said that money couldn't buy her love. That's why she, even though despite what her parents had hoped, I'm wondering if she meant their money too. I'm gonna have to go look back at that. So there's something about money there with Fiona, and I don't know if it's relative and the ex-fiance, but you're correct in thinking like a country club kind of circuit. I would get that. I can see that too. I hope we get to see Lucas's dad. Yes. So we can learn more. So we can learn more about Lucas. he put his father on a pedestal when it came to romance. And he could be a very romantic man. He could have very much wanted his wife. And it took him a while and he was patient. But that doesn't mean that along the way he wasn't wheeling and dealing. And maybe that's why it took her a while. Maybe he had to change. Maybe he did some bad things and then he had to grow. And when he finally did, she, was all for it. I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised if once Lucas's dad is introduced, we don't find out there's been some tension between the two of them. And the first gut feeling I have is that it may be that Lucas is not living up to what his dad's expectations were. Lucas kind of moves around. He's an entrepreneur. He's a gambler in this town. He owns a saloon in this town. And I get the distinct impression that Hope Valley is the first place he felt like he wants to put down roots. So he may have been kind of floating around, moving from place to place. And I could easily see if he came from a prominent family that maybe that isn't what his dad saw for him, or not what his dad still sees for him. I just don't see you living in this little podunk town, married to a school teacher who's been married before and has a child. Man, what is wrong with you? I mean, I could see that. So Elizabeth's family seems to be so intact and, all loving. I just feel like Lucas's family is going to be the source of some, tension, and everything isn't going to be, beer and skittles with them.
Okay.
So that's my prediction.
Well, I love it. That makes for like really good storyline. And we have to see it. We have to see it soon and somehow, some way. So I'm really excited to see who these new characters are that are going to be guesting. I can't wait. I haven't found any clues. They really got that tight. Hey, Peter DeLuise, are you on here? We won't make you divulge anything. So I wanted to go back. There was something someone was saying, two things. Rose, I'm going to come back to you with the cut scene, but it went right out of my head. Something Erica said. I agree. I think they have a past conflict. Okay. So I think we're all getting that vibe, and we're pretty observant. So that's a good thing. Rose says that in the cut scene, his mom is saying something about Lucas's dad to Bill. Is that what you said in the cut scene?
Cute. It's spelled out cute.
I know, but there's such a thing as a cute meet. I'm not quite sure what a cute scene is. She may have just meant cut. I don't know if Rose is looking at her DVD that many people got already and is looking at the cut scenes. But she says something about Lucas's dad to Bill. There was a couple interactions between Bill and Lucas and Lucas's mom. They were together, remember, in the saloon chatting, and then they were together having breakfast together chatting. I would love it if the dad showed up and he saw that. He would take that as, someone invading his territory, his wife. Ooh. Okay, Elizabeth asked Lucas if his mother was going to San Francisco, and he said no, she was going home so I assumed Montreal, Canada. Okay. And I'm going to look into all of that. And she says, oh, sorry, cut. So it was a cut scene. Oh, you're going to make everybody want to run and watch the DVDs. Candace, I feel bad that only Elizabeth's sister, Julie, has been the only one to see little Jack. I want Elizabeth's parents to come and meet little Jack. Well, we have to assume that is happening just because she says they still talk. I'm sure she's shown pictures. It's not like it is today. And we know that that's only happening because of COVID and whatnot. So we have to imagine that that's happening in the background. Do you remember, and I don't know if anybody saw this, but I loved it. And I think it was in a voiceover when she was writing in her journal. They talk about Nathan taking Allie and going to stay with the dad and visiting with him.
Yep.
So they're repairing that relationship. That's stuff that in that time hop happens that we don't get to see. And if you pay attention, they slip that information in. But unfortunately, I know that gentleman, he fell. I don't know what has happened to him, but he was like really sick, unconscious in the hospital kind of thing, the actor. So I don't know what they're going to do with that.
Enderbox just gave me another idea.
Go ahead.
I love this. She said, or he said, I like the comfortable relationship between Bill and Helen. So they're either going to introduce Lucas's father, or what if they kill him off screen, or they divorce off screen, and Helen decides, I'm alone now, I'm going to come live with my son. And, how would Molly take it if Bill and Helen got closer? That could be an interesting scenario.
Yeah.
Because Molly don't take no prisoners.
You know what, Sharon? The whole Tom Selleck thing, I know, like being the dad. We had talked about that before. Tom Selleck would be a great match for his father, although, you know, Tom Selleck doesn't do much in television and he's very much caught up in Blue Bloods. I love him in Blue Bloods.
Oh, that's my other passion. Yeah.
I know. But what about Patrick Duffy? I love Patrick Duffy. You don't think, some people are like, I don't know. I think I might like him there.
He can ride a horse already, so that's
Yes, we know that.
Requirements, yeah. I think he'd be good.
I know. What was I going? There was something I wanted to, I know that. And Kathy, I don't want to cut you off. You can continue. But some people are asking about what happened between, the whole, like there's a time lapse that a lot of people don't get and understand. And I explained it to someone once before, and it had to do with like when she realizes Lucas isn't there, to the bridge, and then from the bridge to the that night. So I wanted to address that before we left. I was just going to say that. I will address it. Pierce Brosnan, yes. There's a lot of people. There are a lot of people that have, I'm sorry, I got a message that went across this way, that are suggesting, yes, they would all be great, but you have to understand, I don't know how, plausible that would be that they would join us on Hallmark. I don't know. Kathy, I think you were spot on. I have thought the same thoughts about his relationship with his father. I believe there will be tension. Yeah, Jill's saying she loves Patrick Duffy too. Gregory Harrison, yes, as Mr. Bouchard. All of them are great choices. There is a deleted scene on the DVD where Helen discusses Lucas and his childhood with Bill. Oh my God. Kathy, you're going to have to come back and talk to us about that, because that's like extra, info. Yeah. I love that.
I love
and yes, Lucas's father is French. We know. Oh, you mean from France or French, Canadian? Laurie, when you say that, you might not know this actor, but he does Hallmark. Paul Essiembre. I do not know that name offhand, but I can look at it and see.
Oh, yeah. I got Google on the other monitor. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. What else is on your list, Kathy?
There's only one more, and I think this is the most important one because it just makes me melt when I see an example of it. He is so vulnerable. And I think this goes back to his childhood when apparently he had some insecure periods, because he told Allie the story about he was afraid that this guy was going to take his mother away. There has to be a backstory there.
Yes.
And I think his father was away a lot, and he said the only time the family was together was at Christmas time. He's told the story to Elizabeth. She said, "Oh, your mother really did teach you well." And he goes, "Helen Bouchard taught me how to read, and after that I was on my own." So I think that he's got a lot of vulnerability, and it shows when he's feeling insecure about, does Elizabeth really love me? Does she really want me? He thinks yes, and then she'll do something or say something, and then he goes no, but his eyes say it all. It's not in the things he says, but he'll be up on his little balcony and he'll look at her and then look at Nathan and then turn around. You can just see it emanating from his eyes. And it's just heartbreaking when he gets that look on his face of, I'm not good enough and I'm not going to get the girl. Even when in episode 12, when Nathan came into to have the drink, and he goes, "Yeah, Elizabeth stopped by. She told me she loves me." And in my opinion, he waited a little beat too long. He wanted to take that last opportunity.
Yeah.
But in that instant, his eyes were like, "Oh crap!" He's here to drop the bomb on me. And he goes, "But she said she's not in love with me." And even then, what's going through his head, I believe, is, well, that may be true, but maybe just because she didn't pick Nathan doesn't mean she picked me, because I haven't heard from her. And that was kind of his rationale for just kind of getting in his car and taking off, until he may have thought somewhere down the road, this is not right. Let me go back and see what the real story is. Thank
Yes.
goodness. But the vulnerability of this guy, you can look at him and see the child that his parents, didn't spend enough time with, and he's still there. And I think that may be why he relates to Allie so well, and probably to Little Jack in scenes that have been cut, but hopefully we'll see him relating to Little Jack. I also think that's going to be a real source of, I don't know if it's tension, but it'll be a real storyline with him and Elizabeth, because as they become more of a couple, Little Jack Lucas is the only father figure Little Jack knows. I know Elizabeth teaches him about his dad and shows him pictures and tells him about him and all that. But what happens when Little Jack is like ready to start talking and, says Dada for the first time, or Dad, and he's talking about Lucas? I think that will, kind of break Elizabeth's heart in one way, but in another way, obviously this guy is wonderful for my son, but I think that's going to be something she has to really deal with. That both of them, all three of them, are going to have to deal with. So I'm looking forward to them dealing with couple stuff and not triangles and manufactured issues, family issues and couple stuff.
Okay, before I know I love it. That's like I think that's what the whole thing is going to be in season 9. Yesterday I said Lucas and Elizabeth picture wasn't coincidental. Hallmark came out with a question mark about Clara and Jesse. Are they testing the waters? Teresa, when you say Hallmark came out with that, you have to be careful and make sure it really was Hallmark. There is something called Heavy, Heavy, and it says Hallmark Heavy, and they are not anything with Hallmark at all. It's a little bit misleading. They had something posted up asking a question for pollers if they felt that they should it should be canceled. And I was like, what? And then I tried to explain to people that is not a real news site. So I'm not quite sure, Teresa, where it was. I can look it up. And Candace said this. Okay. I can look it up, and I will. I'm a little distracted because okay, so I'm going to explain something real quick. When you are being pushed through the algorithm fast in YouTube, you will get, you'll get, like, I hate to say this word, porn will come up, and it can do something against your channel. And this was the blue Hallmark circle. Still, I don't know about that. I'll look into it, because you can do anything to make it look like that, because that Heavy site uses the blue Hallmark symbol. But anyway, I'm coming back to this. Things came up in my chat and I had to block them. So I'm watching for it, some nasty stuff. So that might be why I'm a little distracted as I'm being the moderator while Kathy shares all her insights. So I will look all of that up. I think both Lucas and Elizabeth will help little Jack know his dad, but Elizabeth will be happy and sad when little Jack calls Lucas dad for the first time. And we've talked so much about that. We even said some of it yesterday. I read and shared some people's points, some ways. There were some cool ideas. If you were here yesterday, you'll remember, Kathy, they were saying that someone, and I don't remember off the top of my head exactly who it was, because I have my notes in front of me. Oh, that's not true. I do. But she was saying that maybe through the book that Elizabeth wrote, they could have it republished, the very first one that Jack had published for her. And they could put a picture of Jack in it and dedicate it to little Jack. And that could be a memory for him, since his paintings and things are in there. But also someone had suggested maybe it be just leather bound. And that would be just the whole point of just a memory. The land itself, they might save for little Jack. So there'll be like stepping stones along the way of how they ease into it. But I do think she's going to feel some guilt. Don't you think, Kathy? A little guilt?
I think absolutely she's going to feel some guilt. But I also think that they will, the wonderful, wonderful writers will also write a beautiful scene of Lucas interacting with little Jack and talking to him about his dad and what the whole relationships are. And, I don't know obviously I don't know what the wording would be, but I think that he will make sure that little Jack knows that, he has a dad who's in heaven. And as it's my fervent hope that Elizabeth will overhear that, and that's just, more reason to love Lucas, because he is just so real.
Okay, there's this question that's been around before, and it's the question of Lucas having siblings. And what are your thoughts on that, Kathy? Because I've shared mine before in the past.
I've had that thought, but I think it would be coming out of, I'm not saying it would be unwelcome, but I think it would kind of be coming out of left field, considering that Helen has visited the town. And, discussions about her marriage with Elizabeth, discussions of, just how are things going between Helen and Lucas. And I would think that one of them would mention if there was a sibling, unless this was a sibling who had passed away.
Yes.
Years ago. That is a possibility. And maybe the parents were so heartbroken, and that is, kind of how Lucas ended up, raising himself almost. So I'm kind of torn. I don't think it's completely out of the box, but I think they have to do some contortions to make it realistic of him having a living sibling right now. Unless that's one of the skeletons in Dad's closet.
Yes, I know. And the whole thing too, I was thinking of is passed away, but she made that comment when she thought he was hurt in the when the derrick caught on fire, and she said, "You're all that I have." Mm-hmm. But then his response was to her, "You're being a bit dramatic." And I think that if he had a sibling that died, he wouldn't have said that. Right. So that's what makes me think he didn't. And he was a loner as a kid. So either his siblings way older than him and he never interacted, or because why would he be, totally alone, Yeah. Okay. I see someone else I don't know, so I'm just blocking them. And I don't know who that was, but just showed up and I blocked them. Just being careful. So I wanted to quickly address the whole time frame. So what happens is when Elizabeth decided to take off her ring that night, she wrote the card, and at first you don't see it, but then she did an invitation. She was trying to be romantic like he was. And at the end of the day, after school was out, she was going to go home, get everything ready, and Lucas was going to meet her inside the library. But the whole part was that before she went to work, Robert had to deliver the note card to him. So it didn't get to him because Lucas was so upset. He had waited. He had heard that she already said no to Nathan, and she still hadn't come to him. And he waited for her to be after school, and still nothing. So he got in his car and he went off. But when he went off, and he went in a hurry too, when he went off, he also had that whole conversation with Henry. And Henry is what makes him think, oh, what is it that you really want? It's none of this. What do you want? So in his mind, he's thinking, I want her. But he didn't know that she wanted him. So when he's off taking his drive, they're passing each other. He could have very well been going to her house, but she was coming into town running because she's like, oh my God, you didn't give him the card, the invitation. So when she runs in there and she's banging on the doors, Lee's like, what happened? He just zipped by me. So they're missing each other. So she's so upset. She runs and goes straight to the bridge. He winds up at the bridge too, because he's thinking if she's anywhere, she's going to be there. And he's thinking the same, she's thinking it, he's thinking it. And that's how they meet up on the bridge. And then I'm sure that's how he learns, I've got your invitation for you. And that's why he comes that night. So it's, I hope that helps you with the time frame, but that's the time frame. And had a child too that passed away with his father. Okay. Good points, Roxanne. All right. Oilfield, you're just coming in a little delayed. And I did that fast. Okay. Kathy, I love when you're on with us. You have such good stuff to share. Do you have anything you wanted to
have a request?
Go ahead.
If Peter is on here in disguise under an alias, I have a request. I would love to have a reading list from Lucas.
Yes.
What books would he recommend that we read? Because I'm the only thing I'm sure of is that Dangerous Liaisons would be on the list.
Yes.
But he's between him and Elizabeth there. That was the last thing I had on my notes about him. He is so well read, and there's two examples. And I want to know what book that quote is from, the novel about having Private Joys and Sorrows.
Yeah, Sweet Sorrows. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I didn't know if that was real or not. I'm
It
gonna have to
is. And
Google it.
he says the name and I forget who it is. We can look it up, or I think so. So wait, Elizabeth bought out the entire mercantile of candles for the private book reading. Yes, she did. She was putting her romance pants on. She was definitely doing that. Kathy, you said something and it went right out of my head because I'm trying to be moderator, and it was something. Oh, well, when Peter was on last night, he was on as himself. He subscribed to my channel as Peter. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I was a little leery. And then, of course, you know, he contacted me with his verified account, so I know it was him. And it's in the library that has a full of books, which is paper.
I don't believe Hope Valley has their own volunteer fire department, so.
No, oh my goodness. Great interview. Oh, thank you, Catherine. Okay, so could Helen be remarried to Lucas's dad? Oh, I don't know. Thank you, Kathy and Roxanne. Have a wonderful night, everyone. Thank you, April. Okay. All right. So I think we answered all the questions that we could. I know it takes a while for the thank yous and all that to come in, but even though we stop the live, we can still see them and respond to you. So I am going to stop the live in like 1 minute, and you all have a good night. Oh, before we go, I had thrown up something for merchandise, and I linked it into the link into our pod cast yesterday, and a whole bunch of people bought all kinds of stuff because it notifies me. And then someone went and reported my store, and they shut it down, and they said that it was a copyright infringement. The only thing that is in my store is my actual logo. That's all, and that's mine. So whoever did it to be rotten, I guess. And my only concern is I don't care. I can fix that. But those of you that may have ordered stuff, I want you to check your credit cards, because you should not be charged if they shut the store. And it is no reflection on me. I have no control over that. Every man has, that's it. It's Longfellow. Every man has secret sorrows, which the world knows not. And oftentimes we call a man cold when he is only sad. Very good. Okay. Thank you very much.
And Henry's quote, the writer's quote, what do you have left when the night has wrung all of the light from the day? Oh my gosh, they have such beautiful writers.
Now, do you want to know who wrote that? Because Chris told us.
Who?
Martin himself. He's a writer.
Oh my gosh.
Chris says Martin goes, and especially when they're in scenes together, and he says, I'm rewriting this, I'm adding that, and he's on the, because he doesn't like to do like improv, Chris, and he's like, I'm changing this, I'm changing that, and he shows Chris, and Chris is like, okay. He calls them Martinisms. Martin.
Well, he's good at it.
Yes, and I have to tell you, Martin's about to become a grandfather. His oldest son is having a grandson. So they are very excited. Isn't that cute? Soon, I think the baby's due. I don't know if it's October, late October, but soon, which is good news for him.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I'm going
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it.
Good. Now, Kathy, you don't have to leave. I'm going to hit the broadcast for 1 minute.